But anyway, and so lo and behold, about 3 weeks later, Frank came down, and
Scared out of my mind.
yeah, but he came down,
Yeah.
and he came down, and then we went down on nights. We would go down at nights, and he became really part of what I was doing. And again, I was not interested in going on his show or anything like that, but the meeting between Frank and I, and just that one meeting on the street, just that one meeting, which was over Thanksgiving over 2 years ago, has created all this here with the records with Leslie, Alfred, and Rick, and plus hundreds of volunteers from I can't begin to tell you. So one meeting, one man, and now that is a miracle right there. And so I know what you did, Frank, and the comedy. I've done nothing, but you sure have done a tremendous amount of work for Frontline, and I thank you.
Well, I thank you, and I'll tell you a secret. I didn't do anything either. I did it because I knew I was supposed to do it, and that's the bottom line. I listened to my heart, and as afraid as I was, I still did it anyway, and here we are a little over 2 years later, and still fighting the good fight, I guess, is the way you would say it.
Well, we're in the ring now.
Yeah,
we're in the ring now.
It's about the seventh round or so, wouldn't you say?
And I believe that firmly. So.
Let me give out the number again, the front line. Any of you out there that would like to get involved or just call Ray and spend some time, they are breaking in a new facility and they need a tremendous amount of help and donations along the lines of monetarily and also food. Call first before you stop over. 818 is the area code, 345-8946. And what can I say, brother? Except I love you.
I love you too, brother. And you got a lot of other people who love you too, Frank.
Yeah, well, I want to acknowledge some people that aren't here. Noreen and the whole other entourage in the other room, all the folks that help you out as well. I don't come down near like I used to, but, you know, I have KLOS and all sorts of other things to deal with. But, you know, as I said tonight when you came in, I missed you. And you said you're always there anyway. And I just,
right.
Boy, never in my life have I seen a family like Frontline Foundation. And it gives me hope in times of great despair, whether we're going to pull this mess out. It gives me hope that people really are incredibly loving when you make it safe to love. And the next step is to love anyway, whether you feel it's safe or to be totally afraid to do it anyway. And you're a great inspiration of mine, and I love you a lot, Ray.
I love you, Frank.
All right. We're going to play some rock and roll here and bid Ray and the gang adieu, and we'll have more on KLOS after this. Well, I bet you thought I took off with the gang. I was very tempted to. Boy, what just... Oh, boy. Good morning to you. This is KLOS, of course. It's a few moments away from 2 o'clock. This is KLOS Los Angeles. My name is Frank Sontag. We do this every Monday morning until 4:30. There's more to the show. It actually goes until then, where we take phone calls. And there's a part of me that's speechless right now because it's hard to relate the emotion that was in this room all of about 20 seconds ago. And sometimes it's hard to express it in words. And I'm asked to do a talk show, and the medium by which we've agreed to do that is verbal communication. And emotions are so hard to express. I did a show last year, I believe right at this time, a show that I really have never done since then with the amount of anger that I did that show with. Because last year around this time we were in Panama. Fact is, we're still in Panama right now, but we invaded Panama. And this dark vehicle by which you've all agreed on some level works, this vehicle called war, is something that still a lot of people agree is a solution to problems that are started way, way before the powers that be declare that young women and men go off in this case 12,000 miles around the world, to what may be, God forbid, a war. I am filled with so much love right now, and I'm expressing this with nothing but love, and sometimes love hurts, or sometimes the truth hurts. 1 year later, it pains me greatly to think that the leader of this country, from my standpoint, hasn't grown at all. As a leader, hasn't grown at all from the limited amount of exposure we get as an individual, as a compassionate person. We hear the rhetoric, but as Ray says, hey, let's drop the talk and let's do something. It embarrasses me that the leader of this country can say, for everyone in the world to hear, and I will read you from the paper. It was written in the LA Times that the best chance for peace in the Middle East crisis is for Saddam Hussein to understand that if there is war, our great leader of this country is quoted as saying he's going to get his ass kicked. Now, what is this man thinking about? This is the leader. This is a man that I was raised to believe when kids wanted to be the President of the United States. This is a man that should be an inspiration to not only all generations of this country, but the younger generation as well. Children. What are kids supposed to think when they hear the president saying that he's going to kick somebody's ass? I remember during the 84, I think it was the 84, I remember Geraldine Ferraro and Bush when he was on the VP ticket with Reagan talking about how he's going to kick her butt. God forbid we go to war. It's just so painful at this time of year to think that within a matter of weeks, people will be slaughtered in the streets for what? God, for the right to drive our cars. I'm at a loss for words tonight at this moment in time because, again, it hurts, and sometimes it's hard to talk when it hurts. We all think about this crisis. Some people totally disagree with me. Some people think that there are serious domestic problems in this country right now that we need to spend time and focus attention to. It's just another area of life that we need to learn some serious lessons. And 1 year later, I'm not ranting and raving and calling for this man's impeachment and calling him a coward. It just hurts. It hurts greatly that 1 year later it's the same old story. And we here in the U.S., protest was mentioned before, that hundreds of thousands of Americans aren't in the streets protesting and saying, bring the boys and girls home, and we shouldn't be there. And this man in the White House, we're tired of his aggressive posturing and his dictatorial fashion by which he continues to perpetuate his policies that seem to be based, for the most part, on economics and greed. At a time of year when this is the time of giving, the spirit of Christmas, it's very sad. Very sad. We have a number of other stories we hope to get to tonight. I'm curious if you saw the Frontline special Tuesday night on PBS about the massacre of Chief Bigfoot and hundreds of unarmed Sioux at Wounded Knee 100 years ago. The documentary was called The Spirit of Crazy Horse. I have an article on sustainable development projects in Mongolia, of all places, and a province in India trying to avoid the mistakes of industrial societies. Interesting article out of the October the 15th U.S. News and World Report on a man who had a change of heart about hunting, of all things. Two stories on the space program. Space shuttles are ripping apart the ozone layer, according to one. And the proposed $30 billion space station may be doomed before it gets off the ground because of what you ask? Because of space pollution, of all things. Just as importantly, in conclusion, and then we'll open the phone lines, I would like to talk about issues of the heart tonight. My closing comments last week were the show is, in light of the Gulf crisis and what's been going on, the show is kind of taking a more of a political flavor lately. And I am yearning to talk to you out there who would like to discuss what life is about from your own personal perspective. If you have relationships right now that you're struggling with or you're totally elated with, I hope you pick up the phone and share them with us tonight. Any issues at all, political, personal, whatever you'd like. Let me give some numbers out. We'll play the theme song, and we'll get to your phone calls in a short time. The numbers in the 213 and 818 area code. Our main lines, 520-KLOS, 520-5567. In Orange County, the number there is 977-KLOS. In the 805 area code, 629-KLOS. And in the 619 area code, 570-1556 or 5701-KLOS. Again, our main line is 520-KLOS, and we'll get to more after this.
Talking tangled words, I can sense the danger. Just listen to the wind.
Here's more performance news from the Super Shops Automotive Performance Centers throughout America. This time it's a Super Shop special on famous Edelbrock intake manifolds for V8 engines. Price as low as $79.95. You heard it. The Super Shops experts sell you an all-aluminum Edelbrock manifold for V8 engines as low as $79.95. That's now with the Super Shops Automotive Performance Centers. Super Shops, bringing high-performance discount pricing to America. Bringing you sensational low prices on high-performance and custom automotive equipment like this Super Shops on the famous Edelbrock intake manifold for V8 engines as low as $79.95. Check it out at the Super Shops Automotive Performance Centers.
Super Shops, because everyone deserves performance.
The Super Shop stores in Long Beach, Garden Grove, Covina, Costa Mesa, Tustin, Van Nuys, San Gabriel, La Mirada, Thousand Oaks, and Torrance.
This unbelievable sale on Edelbrock products is going on now at all Super Shop stores throughout America. Don't you miss it.
If you're a parent of teenage children, you have to have a very difficult talk with them. No, I don't mean about teenage sex. For a lot of us, that would be easy compared to what I'm talking about. Talking about drugs, cocaine, crack. Hard as it may be to talk about drugs with your kids, it should be unthinkable for you not to. The idea of your kids using crack or cocaine should scare you to death. So as hard as this may be, you've got to learn about it. And you've got to talk about it. Brought to you by the Partnership for Drug-Free America.
Okay, we have a reminder here from KLOS. Later on tonight at 6 o'clock, we have 2 hours. If you haven't had your fill of Christmas music yet, we have 2 hours of Christmas music a la rock and roll. You'll hear music from the likes of U2, Bruce Springsteen, Bob Seger, Sting, Bon Jovi, John Cougar Mellencamp, Stevie Nicks, The Kinks, no Frank Sinatra. Just 2 hours of headbanging Christmas rock and roll right here on KLOS. The opinions expressed on this public affairs talk show are not necessarily those of Cap City's ABC or KLOS FM Inc. And good morning to you. What a week. What a life. And it's interesting. We have never started the talk show this late in the years, all the years I can remember. And we basically have an entirely full board. And I mean this in the most professional way I can say this. I'll just say it. I walked across the hall on the AM side, KABC, which is our sister station, a wonderful talk show that my friend Tom Hall does on the other side, and they've got a few lights blinking over there. 3 or 4 lines, and we've got like 14 into the station, and we got them all filled but one, which is in the Orange County area, 977 KLOS. What that tells me, amongst other things, is that you people that make the show possible, you people that week in and week out make a difference, and I never meet you, you're out there, and what an incredible program this is. And I just do my thing. I come in and I do the show to the best of my ability, but you folks, I cannot speak highly enough of you. I am so proud of the show and so proud of what you people are about out there. And that even includes the people that can't stand me, the people that think I'm out to lunch, the people that write letters to the station that I read that really don't like this program. We are all in this mess together. And if you risk communicating, whether you're angry or filled with love or sad or happy, we have to reach out. And we have to learn to communicate in a whole different way than what we have done for centuries. Which is, you're afraid, so you silence the other person. No, We can agree to disagree and love each other for the diversity and the richness by which it makes us better human beings and better as a human family. And I welcome you this morning. We're going to do this show till 4:30, and then we'll change hats and play some rock and roll. And I'm in for a long night, and I'm happy to be here. And let's bring on Janelle. Good morning. You're on KLOS and Frank Sontag.
Good morning.
Hello.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Merry Christmas. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Good. Well, the reason I was calling this morning is I wasn't going to stay up this late, but something compelled me to call. I have a friend that I met in Venice a few weeks ago who's homeless, and he's a young guy. He's about 22, and I've talked to him a couple of times on the phone. He calls me, and he doesn't have a phone, obviously, since he's homeless. But I don't know how to do something for him. I talk, and we talk on the phone, and I've invited him to meet my friends, and tried to make a difference in his life. But I just don't know how to help him, what I can do for him.
Well, what would you think might help him? I mean, you've said you've talked to him. It sounds to me like you're attempting to love him. What else can you do?
What else? What?
What else can you do?
I want to help him, to find a job or something, and get off the streets. He doesn't belong there. I mean, nobody belongs there. But I can see so much about him. He can make a difference if he can get into a situation where he's, not wasting his life.
Yeah, does he see it in himself? If he doesn't see it in himself, Janelle, you're wasting your time. And you can love him unconditionally and care about him for the person and the entity that you see him as, but he has to ultimately see it in himself first.
Okay. So.
And what I mean by that is if you can try, and you can. It's called the broken wing syndrome, and a lot of us. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying heed the warning that it might be a setup. That we so much want to take care of other people, which is an important part of being in this lifetime. But it's also important to take care of you as well. And
you mean me take care of myself? Oh, I do. I do take care of myself, and I just.
Part of me is.
It hurts to see him, know that he's out there. Just walking around, afraid to go to sleep because of what might happen to him if he does, and afraid to go to the shelters because he's afraid, because he's upset by the people that are there, that try to,
Well, how is he in the streets? What's he doing homeless?
Well, he was abandoned at birth, and then he was adopted by a schizophrenic woman. And then he was taken away from her and put in foster homes. And
how old is he?
He's 22.
How long has he been in the streets?
Well, he was just recently released from a mental hospital a couple of months ago. So he hasn't been out there very, very long. But I just hate the thought of him being out there. I don't know, and I don't know what to do when he calls sometimes. I just talk to him and ask him if there's any way I can support him, and he's just trying to figure things out.
When you say you don't know what to do, I'm hearing two different messages then. You say you want to help him, you say you want to get him off the streets, and then I hear you say you don't know what to do sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. I know. I see what you're saying.
To me, that sounds like fear.
To me, it sounds like what?
Fear. That maybe sometimes you don't know what the right thing is to say to him.
Exactly.
Well, as long as you love him and you come from a place that you really want what's best from him, for him, everything you say is right.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. That's great.
So stop saying you don't know what to do.
And just do it.
And just do it, because you're doing it right now.
Okay, I got it. It was so incredible listening to Ray this morning saying that when he was saying that people are always talking about how they can make a difference, but nobody does anything. Some friends that I have are involved with a peace vigil that's taking place tonight on Christmas Eve. And it's out at the Federal Building in Westwood, and I feel that's a very profound way for us to make a statement about, protesting what's going on in the Persian Gulf right now. I think if we all get out there and stand for peace and human rights, that it'll make a big statement. And I hope you don't mind me saying that over the air.
Not at all.
Where it's going to be. It's from 5 to 6:30 out at the Federal Building tonight in Westwood. And it's sponsored by the Interfaith Council for the United Nations and also Amnesty International.
No, I appreciate you bringing that up because I feel very strongly about protesting and demonstrations about what's going on in the Gulf. It's not okay with me under any levels. We should not have troops there. They should be home immediately. End of story. I have no patience for war. I have no patience for the warmongers. We can have all the bureaucrats and intellectual giants talking in terms of why we're there and all the planning strategies. I'm sorry, it doesn't wash with me. They should be home right now with their loved ones, and this madman Saddam Hussein and all the posturing that you hear so much about. Where were those people years ago when he was doing exactly the same things? And yet we look the other way in this country. Thank you, Janelle. Peter, good morning. You're on KLOS with Frank Sontag.
Good morning, Frank. It's been a while since we talked, and I wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas, first off, and thank you for the work you're doing. Your program, for me, is a weekly gift, and I hope that your listeners realize that in the world of radio talk shows, what you're doing is very special, and for me, it's become a weekly antidote and a catharsis, and I really thank you for it.
Thank you for the kind words, Peter. That's nice.
I wanted to talk briefly about the Gulf crisis. I've been trying to understand it, do something about it since August, and to stop the movement of our country to war, which I feel, as you do, is tragically wrong. I guess my frustration is coming to a head this very week when we're supposed to be celebrating what Jesus is all about, what he stood for, unconditional love, peace, nonviolence. So it absolutely sickens me to see the unthinking war mentality that's ever more taking hold. And as you said earlier, when Bush says, let's go, let's kick butt, I think what we fail to realize is that if we kick Saddam's butt, we'll be kicking ourselves in the butt, because I don't think Saddam is the real enemy. I think the enemy is us and our attitudes that resulted in Saddam. We built him up, we armed him, we created the whole political and economic context for this so-called crisis, and it's hard to see the truth at times. I don't know if you noted this past Tuesday in the LA Times on page A19, they had a short article that there was a study by the U.S. Army's elite war college which could not confirm, could not find any evidence that Iraq actually used chemical and biological weapons against the Kurds and against Iran. Now, these are two articles of faith that we've been led to believe by Bush and his ilk, that this is one reason to go to war because Saddam has used these weapons in the past, and our own Army War College cannot find evidence that he used these weapons of so-called mass destruction.
Let me read you the quotes of the individuals responsible for doing that research. Quote, having looked at all of the evidence that was available to us, we find it impossible to confirm the State Department's claim that gas was used in this instance. And to quoting this is from the Army War College, I do have the article in front of me. As a matter of fact, I went digging through my files at home, and I dug out a 7-page article on the War College itself. And these are folks that are right there in very deeply with the military. This is not some liberal college. This is the War College.
It's unbelievable. I think often in these short articles that we chance to read, there's an awful lot of truth, and maybe in a decade or so the historians will really nail this thing down and tell us what happened. But another comment I just wanted to make to bring it to a more personal level, I'm finding it a particular challenge this year to have the Christmas spirit enter my heart daily with the anger and the despair about this Gulf crisis, and that's one of the values of people like your guest tonight, Ray Castellani, and the spirit that he evokes, and also in looking to the work of people like Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Jesus, of course, and the Dalai Lama. I happened to see a recent documentary on the Dalai Lama, the spiritual leader of Tibet, on PBS, and of course he was driven out of Tibet in 1959, and genocide was visited on his country, his people, by the communist Chinese. And after 3 or 4 decades of this and thousands of Tibetans killed and his culture destroyed, he remains, very interestingly, a man of peace, nonviolence, reconciliation, and in that sense, I think a model for all of us. We can see that true strength lies in these qualities of peace and understanding, and not in weapons, tanks, and troops. And I guess I'm feeling that whatever the immediate outcome of the Gulf crisis is in the weeks ahead, and it sure looks like we can expect a shooting war, that ultimately the truth will out, and the truth is about peace and nonviolence. And I'm afraid that it may take a shooting war again, as it did in the 60s, to open America's eyes to where this country is going and to expose what I feel is the bankrupt karma of America. You know, in Indochina, I think I've seen estimates that the United States war against Indochina in the 60s and 70s resulted in probably about 2 million civilian casualties, innocent people slaughtered by the bombing, the defoliation, and the other atrocities over there. And so we've got a lot of karma to clean up in this country, but maybe just like Vietnam and the opposition to it served to change things in the 60s and enhance some of the power of that decade. Maybe if we get into conflict in the Gulf in 1991, in the long term, we'll see some good come out of it, although, of course, I hope and I pray for peace, that we don't go to war.
I do as well, Peter, and I do thank you for your contribution this morning. You know, 1 million Indonesians were massacred by right-wing forces in 1965, and the U.S. of A. helped engineer the coup and furnished the military with names of leading leftists. That information was provided by the good old CIA. Peter also mentioned the Dalai Lama, and I want to read you a couple of words. I just happen to have some information, some words that he would like to share with whoever wants to take the time to read some of his words. Love, compassion, and tolerance are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. If you have a particular faith or religion, that is good. But you can survive without it if you have love, compassion, and tolerance. The clear proof of a person's love of God is if that person genuinely shows love to fellow human beings. Dave, good morning. You're on KLOS with Frank Sontag.
Yes, good morning, Frank. You really had a very good impact show, an excellent impact show. I was very much impressed by it.
Thank you.
What I wanted to talk about was how both the liberal and conservative approach to curbing crime has failed. And the reason why I'm bringing up this topic is you wanted to deal with the how it affects personal lives, and I feel that crime drastically affects the personal lives of both the victim and the perpetrator, and that's one of the reasons why I brought it up. Anyway, I'm very deeply concerned by both approaches, and I'll first talk about the conservative approach. The conservatives, their answer to crime is to build more prisons, and they also advocate longer prison sentences and more police on the street. The results have been, and it's rather dismal, is overcrowded prisons and an increase in the crime rate. I wonder, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to reserve my comments because this is a very complex subject and we only have a few moments on the air, and I want to hear exactly what you have to say, and then I can elaborate, no problem.
Okay. Second of all, the liberal approach is most liberals tend to downplay the crime problem, and they say that publicity of crime has led to paranoia among people. And their answer is to their answer is to create more jobs. They think that will solve the crime problem. And in the meantime, liberals who are mugged become conservatives. So I feel both approaches are not working. And what I found was, and this is something that probably you know and probably people who study this problem is that most of the people who commit crimes, many of them have been abused as children. And also, a great number of the crimes are committed because of alcohol and drug abuse. So it's a combination of alcohol and drug abuse and child abuse to make these people into what they do. And another thing also, and this is another thing that most people who have studied the problem are aware of, is that, it used to be that we had what was called the extended family and also the neighborhood. And this tended to give sort of a social kind of, not control, but social how can I say it, perimeters in which people operated. There was a feeling of some type of social standard, and I think that's broken down too. So that's some of the things that I think have occurred, and there are a lot of other things too, down to the school system, and the fact that the top 10% of American students are among the best educated in the world, and the middle sector, that's the majority of students, are among the worst educated in the industrial world. There's so many different facets to the problem, but my feeling is in order to solve the problem, you're going to have to look at some of the reasons. Children and their mothers and fathers, or if they're single mothers, help them. So these are some of the things I think could be done. And again, how do you feel?
The crime problem in this country is self-evident. It's there. It seems to me it's getting worse. It's very complex, but I think part of the actual solution is very simple. I can see no other person immediately tonight that demonstrates to me the solution to crime on some level, and that was my guest Ray, speaking in terms of love and loving fellow human being. You know, we often get what we look for in life. If you look to get ripped off, if you see the worst in people, you tend to create the worst in people. If you see the goodness in mankind and humanity, it's amazing how much the world tends to seem as if it revolves a little easier and there's a little less pain in the world. I'm speaking kind of in circles, but what I'm trying to say is crime is something that we cannot just sit down and discuss and all of a sudden come to some understanding of what crime is about, why people are criminals. It involves a lot of pain. It involves a lot of misunderstanding. But one thing is for sure, that by locking up more criminals, that by talking the tough posturing about how we need to be stronger, the war on drugs, we need to lock up more, we need to put the fear of God into people. We already know what the fear of God is. Most everybody is afraid anyway. The motivation through fear works, but people need to be motivated by a higher source, and to me, that's the motivation of the power of love. Be part of the solution. Don't be part of the problem. Spread some love in the world as opposed to hate or ignorance or fear. And it pains me greatly to sit here. I grew up, I wanted to be president when I was a kid. My God, I would rather be anything that I can think of on the face of this planet than be president of the United States right now, because of what it represents and what that power seat has done to the world. We have murdered so many innocent people in the name of money. And I fear, my friend, along the lines of karmic return, we are breeding some serious karma.
I agree with that. You know, one of the things I think is very necessary, that I think that I feel that there's two ways to look at human beings. One way is to look at them. There's three ways. Well, there's actually three ways. Two ways are what generally people look at, either or. They say either human beings are naturally good or human beings are naturally evil. In other words, the approach has been either or. And I agree with you, that's very complex, and I think human beings are made up of different emotions. And that, again, if we emphasize in human beings, emphasize the positive emotional and feeling and love and things like that, that's the way it should be. But the thing is that I think that when we try to say human beings are either all good or all bad or evil or good, like we've been like in the Judeo-Christian ethic, where the idea is that here are the bad guys, here are the good guys. I think that's too simplistic. And I think that in order to look at human beings, we have to understand that they're complex and their emotions can be positive as well as negative. And again, when some of the religious figures, fundamentalist people talk about absolutes, I tell them this. I talk to them, I said, the fact is no human being in the world can ever live up to an absolute good. But what they should do, what we have to do, is try to set goals where we try to live up to that absolute, but we never can. Human beings can never be all good. And I wonder, how do you feel?
Well, I think we are good. I think sometimes we take actions that might be perceived as bad, but we are not our actions. That's just what we do. I believe in the goodness in all, and I think we are all miracles. I think we are all brilliant entities. I think we have so much love to give, but we're so afraid to give it. And if we just give a little bit of that love back to ourselves and learn how to establish a time to love ourselves, or find out whatever that means, or find out who we are and why we're here, to make this world a little bit better place to be, I think it's a great step in the right direction. And Dave, I thank you for all the great points you raised tonight on the call.
Thank you, Frank.
Take care. Let's bring Mark on board. Mark, good morning. You're on KLOS with Frank Sontag.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, Mark.
Yes,
How are you this morning?
I'm very well.
Good. What's on your mind?
I want to thank you for Ray for your impact today. I'd like to point out to everybody, you see somebody on the street, you want to spread the Christmas cheer, bring them home. Feed them. Give them a warm place to sleep. You know?
Let me respond. I would tend to differ with you a little bit.
Well, that's what we did, my roommate and
I think it's important to trust your intuition. I think there are some folks out there that might be a little dangerous to themselves. But I think the gesture is, I think if we came more of from a place like that, I think it would be better served. And I would agree with you that if you see someone on the streets and you talk to them, and your gut says, yeah, they're a family where the man was an engineer for 19 years, and his firm went belly up, and he's got a wife. Sure, intuition says when that's okay. I caution people that you have to be somewhat responsible as well, and that there are some folks out there right now that are pretty desperate.
And they will hurt you, as I've been hurt before.
Indeed.
I've been stolen from, but...
So share the experience with us.
So, still, I would, it didn't stop me from doing it the next time.
So what was it like? Share a little bit of your experience with us.
I felt like I've been raped. I mean, I gave this person my heart, my home, and my food. And he walked out the door with my stereo. I mean, like, how am I supposed to feel?
I don't know. Maybe I misunderstood you. I thought part of your call was to tell people to take some folks in their home and feed them like you have done.
Well, I'm still doing it. I mean, that was just one experience. I mean, there have been other experiences. There's nothing like, right now, tonight, on my couch is a woman and her 4-year-old boy. I guess I'm doing this for me.
How long have you been doing it?
7 years. I've been so close to homeless a couple of times.
It's amazing how many of us, if we admitted how close we are to maybe being on the streets, we like to point the finger at them and say they're part of the problem, but the majority of people are just a couple of paychecks away from being on the street themselves.
Sometimes it's just a couple of dollars.
So how are you doing now?
Well, actually, I'm doing good. My mother and father are gone, and I don't have a family to share my Christmas with, so I'm sharing it with somebody that I just basically met.
So what does Christmas mean to you? And why can't Christmas be, or why can't the holidays be all year round?
Ooh, good point. I'm trying to bring that love to people. I have a hard time bringing that love to myself.
What are you afraid of? You afraid to feel the hurt that you've been devastated by from the people that you really have loved in your life? The people that were close to you? You feel like mom and dad left you and abandoned you?
Not really. Everybody's got to go. That's part of life. I understand it. I've been through it.
Well, understanding and feeling are two different things. I'd like to suggest that all of us understand that we all have to go sometime, but even if you have a loved one that's been sick for 15 years and can die any time, that when that person actually dies, you're never ready for it.
Well, that's true. I agree with that. It doesn't matter. There's no way to prepare yourself for the actual loss. And I tried.
How long have you listened to the show?
Let's see, since 72. So I've talked to you before it was your show.
Do you work?
Yes.
What do you do for work?
I install and finish hardwood flooring.
Do you love it?
Most of the time.
Yeah. Sounds like a pretty challenging job to me.
It's what I do for money.
What do you want to do for love? For work? What we've termed work. What would you like to do the majority of your time that you'd love to do and also maybe make a living at it?
Hard questions, Frank.
Well, maybe something to ponder for the next call.
Well, and I have a couple other points to make.
Well, make them quickly. I would appreciate it because we're pretty much out of time and we need to move on. So I'll give you the opportunity for a closing comment.
Okay. Well, I think George Bush is culpable. According to some of the people in the CIA, criminally culpable. And he should be excised.
What else?
Oh, yes, I do. I have, for the people that want history on the Sioux Nation, I have a book. Black Elk Speaks by John Neidhart.
It's a wonderful book, and I do appreciate you bringing that up to us tonight. I hope you take care, Mark, and I hope to talk to you again. Breathe, Frank, and some reminders here from KLOS. Join Bob Coburn every weekday afternoon at 12 noon. He's the host of Noontime Nuggets. He plays close to 1 hour of some great old rock and roll. And the only place you're going to find it is right here on the home of rock and roll. Also, the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy offers information on parks, beaches, and recreational opportunities in the Santa Monica Mountains. If you're looking for something good to do outdoors, you can call our switchboard with that. Tony, good morning. You're on KLOS with Frank Sontag.
Good morning, Frank. How are you?
Good, Tony. How about you?
Better and better.
Glad to hear it. What's on your mind?
Well, I had some comments and some questions that I wanted to address to you and to the listening audience tonight. I'm just curious, whatever happened to unconditional love, true unconditional love in relationships? Where's it gone? And how can we get it back? I'm feeling that unconditional love is the key to all things in life, and that human interaction is becoming more and more complex today. Maybe it could be because of our disease-laden society and our recessive condition, the fact that we're in a wartime period, it would seem. And we've got a lot of other stuff to deal with. But I think that there are people out there that are
I get a sense that there are a lot of people that are on edge right now. I experienced it 3 times tonight after I came in the door. My friend and program coordinator Mark Winnick sat and experienced one with me, and he just kept looking at me like saying, what's going on with people? People are very edgy. And people seem to be in a lot of pain these days, and I think part of it is the Gulf situation is weighing heavy on a lot of our hearts. And when it comes to relating one-on-one with each other, this unconditional love that you talk about, it's a pretty noble gesture, but it's not an easy thing to live. And I think we are so complex in nature. I would like to suggest, just for the sake of discussion, that most of us really don't know what love is, and most of us really don't understand ourselves, and then you throw it into an equation of a one-on-one intimate relationship. Things can get pretty wild.
I agree with you, and I think that the majority of the problem today is that people are just too busy to love, too concerned with other things, and possibly they're forgetful of the fact that love is a necessity for survival. I mean, there's just nothing, without love we're nothing. And I think that in this day and age it's most important. And Frank, to be honest with you, I haven't had a relationship in my lifetime like the one I had 4 years ago with a gal, and we both listened to your show. In fact, we basically met through the show with Michael Benner back when he was hosting the show. And a long, interesting, complex way we met, but we stayed together for quite a long time. And the reason why was because we were so interlinked. The show brought us together. I can't explain it any other way than that. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life being with this woman, because she truly knew how to love unconditionally, and so did I. And at that time, we needed each other, and everything was very, very good between us. We didn't have the problems necessarily that we had today. We're both activists. We're both very active in disarmament and global policies. But we realized then that what we needed was love in our life. And I've got to tell you, Frank, I went to a major restaurant group. I won't name names, but I went there with a couple of friends after we had finished our Christmas party for work, and went there to just have a couple of drinks and to check things out. And I realized something. I realized the plasticity of this initial contact dating stereotype thing that we call, the first meeting, the first impression. It's rather depressing to watch. And I don't know. I just don't know how to meet these people anymore. I don't know, and I bet there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to meet these people anymore, and how to...
How did you meet her?
Well,
kind of like magic, huh?
It was magic.
Okay.
It was totally... I wasn't looking for it either, and I'm not looking for it now.
Sure you are.
What?
Sure you are. Come on.
You're right.
I know I'm right. And that's where you get yourself stuck when you say, I don't know where to go to find it. You've experienced one relationship in your life where you created it on some level, and you go back and you maybe think in perspective now how that happened, and that was like magic.
Yeah.
And the next one is going to be like magic as well. And it's going to happen when you least expect it. The part of you that feels frustrated and sees just how synthetic dating is the part of you that's yearning for something like that again in your life.
You're right.
So declare it as your birthright, and trust the process that it will manifest. And again, embrace those areas of pain that you have in denial about.
Mm-hmm.
Mourn a little bit for that relationship of 4 years ago. I was kind of curious why it is that ended the way it did, and it seems so real to you. a fair amount of time later. How did that end?
I'm sorry, what was the question now?
What was the reason why that relationship ended?
Well, there was a rather significant age difference between her and I, and at the time in her life, she needed to be in a position to where she could help and support her causes and our causes on a much greater level. And she was working, and I was in school in college, finishing up my degree. And I couldn't provide the household. I couldn't provide the husbandry. I couldn't provide those things at the time in my life. And basically, she needed those things, and I needed to stay in school. And again, there's the problem of what we think we need. But it's what she needed at the time.
How much did you mourn that relationship when it was over?
How much what?
How much did you mourn that relationship when it ended?
You know what? To be honest with you, not very long, because I loved her unconditionally. And unconditional love means no conditions. It means no strings. It means whatever choices we make, we truly love. And I had to set her free. I couldn't give her the guilt trip associated that so many people associate with releasing people from relationships.
Wait, slow down. So many people doesn't apply to you. And my love for you right now is that unconditional love, as noble as it may be, we are imperfect because we are human beings. And sometimes mourning, or to feel a sense of loss, or to feel great pain, is a step also along the lines of unconditional love. And I think if you acknowledge the pain that you're feeling right now, and you get real about that, the moment you start to sense that pain and feel overwhelmed will be the moment that you'll set yourself free from that relationship of years ago, and I think you'll open yourself up to another one whenever that may manifest.
Right. Frank, I'm really not hurting about this relationship. I don't think that I'm in a mourning period with the relationship. I just sense that ability within so many people, including myself, has been gone for such a long time, and I want to get that back. And I think, see, she and I right now are great friends, and she's married, and she's doing exactly what she needs to do, and I love her for it, and she loves me for what I've done. But the thing is that I just wanted to find a method somehow to communicate to others and to link these people together. I just don't know. I don't know what else I can do aside from, a medium, a way to get to these people, a way to get to these people that feel about love the way I do.
Well, let me give you this in closing because we need to move on. I did groups for a year and a half. I did my last one last week. We had a tremendous amount of people who would come to that. There are all sorts of avenues by which that you can create that for yourself. Pain, anger, fighting, loving. I think unconditional love is, again, something we strive toward, but I think there are a lot of people that really don't understand what that involves. And when you say you really didn't mourn the relationship and you don't really hurt from it, I don't have a need to be right here, but I get a different feeling from that inside. And I think sometimes pain and to be upset and devastated are the richest things you can do for yourself. Instead of being noble and say, well, I love her and I let her go, and I'm not necessarily speaking in terms of what you're sharing with me on a first-hand basis. Sometimes I'm saying that's the case for a lot of folks, and maybe I'm speaking rhetorically. So I hope we talk again, because we can talk at length for a long time about this, and I do appreciate your call this morning, Tony. And thank you for sharing such deep and loving experiences that you've had in your life. That's very special. Jerry, good morning. You're on KLOS with Frank Sontag.
Good morning, Jeff. I'm calling to...
hey, Jerry?
Yeah.
Who is Jeff? Is there someone here by the name of Jeff?
Oh, I'm sorry. I got confused.
That's what I thought. Easy to get rid of that. I spotted him 10 seconds into the call. Gary, good morning. You're on KLOS with Frank Sontag.
Hey, Frank.
Hi, Gary.
How's it going?
It's going. How about you?
Pretty good. Just hanging out, listening to the show. I really liked your Impact show.
Yeah, Ray's interesting, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's great. He's really great. Yeah, you know, sometimes I think we're going to be all right, you know, when people like Ray talk, and a lot of the other people I've been fortunate enough to meet along the way, you know.
How about when people like Gary talk?
What's that?
How about when people like Gary talk?
Yeah, that too. I'm getting a little bit happier with myself nowadays.
Yeah.
And I've been doing a lot of growing, you know. And the reason I've been growing is because I've been risking, you know. And I haven't been afraid to risk and put it out there. And I used to be afraid to risk, you know, because I didn't want to get rejection or failure or whatever. Maybe I was afraid of succeeding. I don't know. But it's really good to be able to risk nowadays and to grow from it.
What is growing like? What do you get out of growing? Why are the majority of people out there, why are they not interested in growing? You know that maybe you can share with them.
Well, I think that people are so used to being in the same spot that they don't want their little world shooken up, you know, and growing entails a lot of things. Sometimes it's good. In my experiences, it's the only one I know, and sometimes it's bad. Well, not really bad, because it's all good, but sometimes it's just not all a bundle of joy like you want to be. And reality is, I don't think you can ever be like that. But I think people are just maybe not open to it either. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. It's, I think if you're willing, that's half the battle. You know? And, things have happened to me in my life lately because I've been open to it. You know, I've been risking, I've been going to some protests, and I went by myself to two of them. And I had a lot of fear involved in that, and I was uncomfortable about it, but I walked through it anyways, and they were some of the richest moments of my entire life, you know? And usually that's what happens when I'm afraid to risk, and I don't know, it's just about that, you know, that's how we grow, and if you grow, you know, at least for me, I've been learning to love a little bit more, you know, and kind of understanding that concept.
You know, one of the dilemmas that we tend to get into when we grow fast, I can empathize exactly what you're talking about, because there have been times in my life where I have experienced a tremendous amount of growth in a short time. When you kind of stop to get your bearings and you say, you know, who am I? You get this fleeting feeling like you have no idea who you are, and you tend to feel a little crazy, like you kind of went into time warp, and what happened? And we try to get our feet on the ground and get a sense of reality as we experienced it for so many years. Does that make any sense at all?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it's a very uncomfortable feeling when you think that the majority of people on this planet draw what's important to them, draw their very meaning of their existence from some simple and sad daily rituals that they go through, that they need to work so many hours a week, and they have the house payment, and they want the car, and they want to go here and there, and yet when you take all of that away, something as simple as relating to fellow human being or learning to nurture Mother Earth, as is the case with many indigenous cultures around the world, what few there are left, it takes on a whole different perspective as to why we really are here. We get so caught up in the distractions. So someone like yourself that's committed to growing, that's committed to risking and finding out who Gary is and why you're here, I would think sometimes that's a pretty rocky road to travel.
Yeah, but it's the better road for me. You know, I traveled the easy road for many years. And it's only been, last 3 or 4 years that I chose to really figure out who I am and what I am and why I'm here. And even though it's rocky, the benefits are unbelievable. You know, some people I've heard say that, you know, you just put out the love and you give and don't expect anything back, but God, you get so much back when you give, you know. And
why did you decide to take that road a handful of years ago?
Because I really, it's a tough question. Because I knew there was more than the way I was living. And I always had that feeling in my heart, maybe in my soul, that there was something for me to do, something more than the existence I had. And I just chose to change and to get on with life. And I think it was supposed to be like this anyway, because that's why I learned what I learned, acting the way I acted those many years ago.
What would you like to say in closing, Gary?
Well, I'd like to say to any listeners that might want to do something with their life, maybe change it, you know, to risk it and risk to love themselves, and so they can love others. Because I think it's easy to love others, but it's really hard to love yourself. And if you can love yourself, I think you've beat the battle. And just be open to life, you know. And there's love in everything, you know. There's love in trees, there's love in birds, there's love in the dirt, you know.
Yeah,
there is.
Yeah,
it's everywhere.
There is.
And just take some time to get to know who you are and love yourself, and you'd be surprised at what could happen. And I love you, Frank. And I hope you have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Gary, and I love you too, and I hope you do as well.
And I'll be talking to you soon.
All right, I look forward to it. You take care. It's a little after 3. This is KLOS Los Angeles. Mike, good morning. You're on the air with Frank Sontag.
Yeah, good to speak with you.
Thank you.
First and last time I heard you was New Year's morning of this year, and I heard you speaking about Panama, and a soldier that had just recently returned from Panama. I don't know if you remember the call, but I think he supported the action down there, and I think you asked him to dinner and to a movie, and I was kind of curious as to what came of that.
Oh, yeah, the famous call. I don't remember the exact circumstances by which the call progressed. I know that I was rather outraged with what was going on in Panama at the time, and he called up to beg to differ with me. We never went to dinner. We actually have correspondence from time to time whenever he's in town. Sometimes he picks up the phone and calls KLOS and checks in. He did see Born on the 4th of July. That was part of the invite with getting together, because I was mentioning the movie, and he did go see the movie and claimed he liked it a great deal. I haven't heard from him in a few months, and he just checks in from time to time and lets me know how he's doing.
Great. I was wondering if I could make a comment on the Impact Show.
Sure.
I was thinking of calling in earlier, but what I was wondering was, do you think maybe, I think his name was Ray?
Yes, Ray.
Maybe, as noble as his efforts are down there, that maybe he's just treating a symptom and not the cause?
So it's a great question, and I'll respond this way. I have heard many statements to the contrary as to what he does, that, hey, it's noble, and, hey, it's a sweet cause, but the old adage that doesn't come to mind about you can feed someone, you feed one some immediately, you feed them for a day, but if you teach them whatever it is, you give them the opportunity to feed themselves for a lifetime, whatever the saying is. My response to you into that whole mentality is, I challenge you in front of thousands of people right now to find out what he does first before we're so quick to judge what we imagine or what perceptions or what judgments we've drawn from someone else's experience. Because I'll tell you this, my friend, I'm a young man, I'm 35 years old, and I have rarely come across an individual that lives his vision to the degree that Ray does. And I'll tell you, there is a lot more than just people feeding other people on the corner of 5th and San Pedro. And there's a lot more to that foundation than meets the eye. The tremendous amount of love that is generated from the people that are involved, that love Ray, and Ray loves them. I challenge you to find out what's going on with them, and then call me back and tell me exactly what you're telling me now on the air, and see if you haven't changed your perception a little bit.
Well, if I may, I truly appreciate what he's doing down there, but I think that a homeless situation would always be a byproduct of a capitalist economy, because, I mean, the workers are pitted against the workers. I think it's always survival of the fittest, and the weakest will always get thrown out.
So how does that get any closer to solving the homeless problem?
Well, I think if we understand the dynamics of the economy, maybe we could change something within the economy instead of, I think it was Mona who said putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Again, I mean, I do appreciate the feeding of fellow human beings. I think that's where the efforts need to start from. But finally solving the problem.
I, from my own perspective, I think that solving the problem can only come from a perfect example of what Ray does. I think all the solutions lie in love for fellow human beings. And I think we already know the problem. People know economics are part of the problem, but I'll tell you the causal level for greed is the lack of love and compassion for fellow human beings. It's just a structure. It's just an agreement that a lot of people have bought into. And that, sure, capitalism is going to create a certain amount of homelessness. But the point is what do we want to do with it, why we are alive at this point in time? And again, I'll tell you, I'll say it once again, that I have seen things in that foundation and on that corner that, Mike, I cannot put into words. Things that have actually happened on that corner that have changed people for the rest of their lives. And I'll tell you, if I can get more of that in my life, or if I can create more mediums by which I see that kind of change and that kind of love and that kind of tremendous impact on fellow human beings, I'll tell you, life would look a whole lot better.
All right. Well, keep up the good work, because this is the only second time I've heard your show, but I really enjoy it.
Thank you, Mike, and I hope you take care. We're going to take a break, and I want to tell Richard, who is up next, he wants to talk about Iraq and everybody else that's on hold. We're going to take a quick musical break. I do feel compelled to say this, though, in terms of the Gulf situation. I'm going to post phone numbers in the switchboard. I am what would be the right word? Angry, concerned. I'm going to post numbers in the switchboard. If there are any young men out there that are considering finding out their legal alternatives to signing up, or if they're afraid if the draft is reinstituted, I'm going to put phone numbers in the switchboard for counseling. Local counselors in the Los Angeles area, military, counter-recruitment counseling. You understand what I'm saying here? In the 60s, they would call this how to get into war. I want to put numbers in the switchboard of names and organizations by which you can make a phone call and find out. Because if you're 17, 18, 19 years old and you're kind of confused about what's going on in the Gulf, a lot of people will tell you it's a noble cause. It's about fighting this bad guy. And a lot of people will say it's wrong. But you got to find out for yourself what it means to you and what you're going to do to help resolve that situation. And there are some folks here on this list that I know have been involved in this situation for years and years and years. Some have even dedicated their lives to righting what they see as wrong. Those phone numbers will be in the switchboard. Also, a story that I can almost bet you haven't seen in terms of the Gulf crisis. Following the deployment of troops to protect the U.S. claim to Saudi Arabia's oil, the American Council for an Energy-Efficient Economy sent a letter to President George Bush expressing concern, quote, that our country may go to war in the Middle East allegedly over petroleum supplies, unquote. The ACEEE reminded the president that increasing fuel efficiencies to 40 miles per gallon for automobiles and 30 miles per gallon for light trucks would save more oil than the U.S. imports from both Kuwait and Iraq. Furthermore, a reduction of 3 miles of driving per day per vehicle would save the same amount of oil immediately. You're saying, I know about conservation. I know it would work. I'll read on. Ironically, the U.S.'s $35 million a day Operation Desert Shield will actually be returning some of that Saudi oil back to the sands of Arabia in a slightly altered form. It appears that Saudi Arabia's deserts may soon be littered with piles of non-biodegradable plastic water bottles and food packages provided by the U.S. petrochemical industry. Each day, the United States, at this time when this article was written, 150,000 troops. You can double that. At the time this article was written, it was in the fall. Each day, the U.S.'s 150,000 troops will be consuming 3 million gallons of water and getting their 3 daily rations of pizzas, hamburgers, and hot dogs served in plastic MRE, meals ready-to-eat packaging. These plastic bags are extremely durable. MRE packs discarded during the Grenada invasion in 1983 could still be found littering the island years later. At full strength, the 250,000 troop-strong U.S. force would be using and discarding 750,000 MRE pouches each day, more than 5 million a week. To heat the food, individual plastic bag servings are designed to be stuffed into yet another plastic bag called a flameless ration heater, containing a magnesium flare that can heat the food to 100 degrees in 10 minutes. The FRH packs can only be used once. Meanwhile, the Marines of Bravo Company have already taken platters into their own hands. These enterprising leathernecks are cooking their MREs in handmade solar box cookers fabricated from cardboard boxes and aluminum foil. In other words, have you thought about the amount of trash, non-renewable, non-biodegradable trash that's going on down there? No, most of us think his war is right and wrong and good guys and bad guys, and maybe not. Maybe most of us see the wrong. Maybe most of us see the lie. Maybe we're just confused as to what we can do. My suggestion to you is a little more radical than the next person. It's like that network movie, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And you support the protests that go on Saturday, weekly, at the Federal Building. And you contact an organization, the LA Coalition Against Intervention in the Middle East, and you find out how you can help them. Because I think all of us know this is wrong. And if more of us were steadfastly opposed to something that a year ago, after the invasion of Panama, to contemplate that we could have over 400,000 troops 12,000 miles away in the year 1990 in the Middle East, to me would be almost unfathomable, would be almost indescribable. Saddam Hussein went to Kuwait a while ago and said, can I have $2 billion? Because my country is devastated by the Iran-Iraq war. And Kuwait basically said, go take a hike. And he had been warning for quite a while to go to war. And he did. And we looked away, just like we said we were going to look away, because George Bush wants to control the oil in the Middle East. Do you think if they sold bananas in the Middle East, do you think we would really be down there? Do you think that Bush would be raising such a stink and making such a total fool of himself, talking about kicking ass God. Our musical break is going to be dedicated to Mr. George Bush. And in this time of the holiday spirit, this first song that was written a couple of decades ago, I think applies exactly to what's going on right now. We'll be back with more. This is KLOS.